yo! What's going on? It's DST Show. We're going to be recapping a bit of what happened over the postseason so far, especially what happened over on the wildcard round for the NFL playoffs. Of course, Monday tonight is the culmination of all this with Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing off against the Dallas Cowboys, and then we'll head over to the divisional round after most of these games have been close quarters or massive comebacks. Of course, we had a massive 27-point comeback from the Jacksonville Jaguars after the Chargers could have took them out. A unanswered 17-point comeback from the Miami Dolphins, almost losing to the Buffalo Bills, closing out after a close quarters matchup. After a slow start from the Miami Dolphins, even though most people had them going on a shutout. The New York Giants just making the NFC North champions, the Minnesota Vikings, work over for a massive loss with probably the clutchest performance over just a 5-6 season playoff drought. And coming over with their first playoff win since 2012. And the Baltimore Ravens actually playing some secure football, taking a close call after penalties cost them over a game that they could have possibly won against the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals, but not good enough. Most of these games have not been that dull. There hasn't been that many secure shutouts unless you want to count the San Francisco 49ers game against the Seattle Seahawks. Even though the Seahawks were trying to keep it clutch with DK Metcalf getting some great completions on the side, good first downs, I thought the route running was a bit weak, especially over the penalties that Travarius Ward kept getting. There couldn't be much coverage, and Cincinnati were keeping it clutch, but Brock Purdy was just too much to handle, and so was the tandem rushing offense from the 49ers that just kept it too difficult, with Deebo Samuels killing it, George Kittle killing it, Brock Purdy just feeling like he's been in the league dominating for the past 5 years instead of just him having probably a great rookie season for himself, while not expecting to go this far. Especially for the Bills game. We weren't even expecting much over Skylar Thompson, because Skylar Thompson was starting out the gate already, going 1 for 10, barely 26 yards to himself over in a quarter. Drop balls coming from Tyreek Hill off simple slant routes. But they kept closing out with, 8 conversions over play actions, especially a 40-yard deep ball that got called back over, an incompletion. Unanswered 14 points over in the third quarter. Dolphins were working really, really better in the second half. Came over with a 17-point comeback in the second quarter, but Buffalo just closed out with an unanswered 14 points. Buffalo only scored, once in the fourth quarter. Buffalo's defense was just stopping over childish plays, rookie-made plays from the Dolphins. When it came over their weak play actions over reads, and Skylar Thompson was still going to throw it over disgusting curl routes over to Tyreek Hill alone over to that field, and it costed them. We're looking at Jeff Wilson only with 23 rushing yards over his name. Jalen Waddle had several premier drops, and those were not even Thompson's bad passes. The total high receiving yards came over with Mike Gesicki with a touchdown of his own over to the red zone to try to come back after only getting 2 receptions over 6 targets. Doran Smith got only 1 catch over his name, and Jalen Waddle only with 3 receptions over seven targets, and he had like 3 or 4 drops. The only worser performance than Jalen Waddle shockingly came over to the New York Giants. And no, it's not Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney's now has been a Kansas City Chief. It came over with Darius Slayton, and he had like 3 drops over his 8 targets. And people were expecting him at better because Richie James was very nice, and so was Isaiah Hodgins. That came over 105 yards off a touchdown to clutch over the lead, with Daniel Bellinger getting a touchdown for himself. Daniel Jones going for a QB sneak for himself for the nearly sneaking it home for his own touchdown and having 300 passing yards. One of the better performances in the NFC. He didn't throw a pick. Show some respect to Daniel Jones, everybody. My God. The Bills barely survived over a bottom-feeding, struggling Miami Dolphins team that came over losing 6 straight over their last 8 games, nearly surviving after closing out against the Jets with Joe Flacco starting over Week 18. And they played over in the second half like they didn't need to try. Especially their first quarter performance that was awful, pitiful, disgusting, putrid, off. Now Tua Tagovailoa coming back could have been a different story, but several turnover on downs, especially over their play action. They want to push over wheel routes so bad. Hooking over the flats to Jeff Wilson over short gains over to the curl. He can barely even catch that. Especially when Salvin Ahmed came over like a tough, came over a near reception, tipped over and he got taken away for a turnover for the Bills. Skylar Thompson did better than he did against New York, but he went 18 of 45. That should be around at least a 40-something per QBR for himself. 220 passing yards with about 1 touchdown to his name to Mike Gesicki. If it wasn't for the defense getting a majority of the takeaways, because Josh Allen just, even though he got 3 touchdown passes, over 352 yards, 2 takeaways over poor reads from himself, over his pocket passing. He needs to not make shoddy decisions like this. A team like the Bills should have been a blowout. Devin Singletary only came over his 10 carries with 48 yards. When he was like 9 carries, he was still under 25. Stephon Diggs started off the gate hot. He came over a 40-yard reception in the first quarter. And then he get a touchdown. Gabriel Davis came over a burnout touchdown. Both guys combined for at least 327 yards. No, 227 yards for themselves in this game. Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs could not be stopped. Khalil Shakir could have at least possibly went over 70-something yards if he didn't got his completion dropped back over, barely holding on to the ball. Cole Beasley got tipped over after a bit of collision and got the ball taken away from him. Dawson Knox got a great touchdown over on the red zone early in the first half. And the Bills defense tried to take care of the rest, but if it wasn't for the consummate takeaways and terrible reads over by Josh Allen, trying to, get more flash for his, trying to cause more flair with his passing, this could have been a 2-score, 3-score deficit early around the third quarter. Especially what the Bills were competing with. It's just no excuse. I'm not going to lie, guys. Thanks for what. No, we're not done. Of course, we also got the Cincinnati Bengals facing off against the Baltimore Ravens. That people were expecting Tyler Huntley to play well. J.K. Dobbins went over 62 rushing yards. He got some clutch first downs after averaging around like 4.8 over, Tyler Huntley with 2 touchdowns. Especially 2 great deep balls over to Demarcus Robinson that ran out over the secondary. He did throw a shoddy interception. I think that was over to Von Bell. No, Mike Hilton actually caught an interception. And I had to look up who that guy was over on the secondary because Mike Hill, I think he has only a total of 4 interceptions in the season so far. And while the only interception, I noticed from an irrelevant player, came over to what happened in the Bills game because Damar Hamlin, it went over that guy who's taking over the spot for Damar Hamlin. So don't try to take it like I'm being disrespectful. And it came from the Bills. And that came over Dean Marlowe when Skylar Thompson threw a shoddy interception when he was rolling out over his right. And that was, I think that was the second quarter before they went to the half. But Joe Burrow, 209 yards from him. Most people expected him to go 250. But Baltimore Ravens still got a competent defense. Especially holding over Joe Burrow. I think they had about, 2 sacks? 2 sacks on him? They kept trying to put him down. Like a bunch of stops. They got a forced fumble over Huntley through the pocket, especially when he was trying to push over for a scramble. There was a face mask by the defense over trying to stop Huntley over to the scramble. 2 pass deflections over from Marcus Peters and Marcus Williams. That was mainly manned up with Jamar Chase over, some good reads, especially coming over to the post routes and short receptions. Jamar Chase was still the perennial top receiver, even though Boyd was getting some massive catches. Jamar Chase went for 84 yards over a touchdown pass in the third quarter, with only catching 9 over the 12 touches. And Hayden Hurst was, of course, the second most with 45. T. Higgins had nearly a touchdown before getting called over for an incompletion after, barely getting a handle over that ball in the first quarter. And Tyler Boyd only went 3 for 3. You expected him to get around at least the second or third most yards over the tight end. Because Joe Mixon was so underwhelming, only 3.5. Baltimore's run stop is actually still pretty effective, even with probably their defensive line being veterans. Veterans. I saw JPP on the roster, Calais Campbell that's pushing 40, and Justin Houston, a veteran from the Kansas City Chiefs, with Broderick Washington and Brent Urban. Only the secondary has some youth in it. I'm being honest with you. With Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. And Marlon Humphrey. I think that he's 25 or 26. While Marcus Peters should be around 31. And Patrick Queen, that's also a young guy. And most of these guys didn't really got that much effective except Broderick and JPP. They actually got a couple good hurries over on Joe Burrow when he was still trying to be selective in the pocket. Burrow did get some clutch first downs when he broke over 3 tackles and when he was trying to escape. So was Huntley when he scrambled over for the pocket. But I thought it was just who would get over the clutches defense. Even though Baltimore's rushing was a bit more dominant than Cincinnati, but Von Bell just made them work for it. And getting some clutch defensive stops, especially over Akeem Davis-Gaither's interception earlier around the game, and DJ Reader getting some clutch hurries over on Tyler Huntley, suffocating him over to the pocket, and Jermaine Pratt as well. He had some good highlights. I love this game against the. I think this is my second favorite game against the Giants since the Giants and Vikings. That was just a great back and forth for the Giants and Vikings. I'm not gonna lie. Probably best game over the wild card weekend, unless you want to discount the massive comeback from the Jacksonville Jaguars and the LA Chargers that probably a lot more people are going to be talking about. It's over the front office take of the of the Chargers. More people are going to be more concerned about what's going to happen in the offseason now than what's going to happen in the postseason after what happened. Kirk Cousins with 273 yards off good completion rating. He didn't throw a pick. But TJ Hawkinson had a game to remember. 129 yards. Even though he was doing excessive curl routes, Justin Jefferson started out the gate with already 47 yards. He caught majority of his receptions, especially near the red zone. I think it got called back. KJ Osborne, I think, kicked off of a touchdown for the Vikings. And there was even a QB sneak earlier around the game, but dude, the Giants battled open back with a touchdown to, I think it was Isaiah Hodgins, and then Daniel Bellinger came over with a easy touchdown over to the outside. I don't even know what was going on. Saquon Barkley killed it. And he wasn't even the leading rusher. It was Daniel Jones over 17 carries, over good QB sneaks, and good at, patience over to the pocket and scrambling when he needed to. Jones just made himself a massive dual threat. It's like Josh Allen and Daniel Jones switch bodies for the day, the way they were playing. Usually we got rookie Daniel Jones for that Dolphins game, and we just got regular season Josh Allen for the Giants. Defense came to play. Leonard Williams got a massive hit over to the ball with at least several hurries. There's at least no sacks. Cousins was too easy, to hold over in the pocket, especially over to the hurry play action. They kept converting over a lot of first downs. And just the clutchest stops by the defense in the last drive was just, I mean, if they were less conservative and trying to build over yards and rely on just the guy that caught the ball the most and do some more creative plays. And of course, this has been a constant with the Minnesota Vikings. They've went over winning streaks while holding over only single-digit deficits for majority of the season. And they have not looked legitimate, even though they've beaten the Giants before in 3 weeks prior. And they are still coming over, just letting Patrick Peterson get burnt out, letting Jalen Reagor get popped over the ball earlier around the game, and Eric Kendricks that came over one pass deflection, but let me tell you something, he was getting out-routed by Isaiah Hodgins. it was just mainly tackles these guys had to stop over the Giants receiving core for playing that well. And most of these games have been close quarters, over 25 points for a majority of these games, except possibly the Cincinnati Bengals that ended near 24-17. Giants won 31-24, and the Miami Dolphins lost 31-34 against the Buffalo Bills. We'll close out and see who will make it over to the divisional round with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and, of course, Dallas Cowboys, and see if they're going to be a scoring nightmare for both teams, knowing that the weapons they got, even though most people would probably favor out the Cowboys. Even with their postseason history, Tom Brady has massive momentum, chip over his shoulder, being 7-0 against the Dallas Cowboys since becoming a Buccaneer, and of course, having two straight opening day victories against them on primetime television. And guess where we are again? Primetime for Monday Night Football come tonight. So you guys tell me down below who you have winning this game. I already saw the polls from our last time I did this, because I just thought people were just being stupid after the Bengals and Chargers game, except you guys were right. And over the second poll, out of the 5 teams I posted, most of you guys put the Minnesota Vikings as the biggest frauds. But there seems to be a 50-50 split on who could possibly win this game, because we know the Dallas Cowboys are pretty iffy, while the Buccaneers, or the Cuccaneers, have been somewhat inconsistent over a disappointing NFC South division, sneaking their way while being only a game below 500, snatching the NFC South. So, I don't know who's more fraudulent, even though we possibly know who. The Vikings and the Chargers. Could it be the Buccaneers and the Cowboys? I'm possibly going to stream that game tonight. So guys, just sit tight, because postseason football, you'll get the best football or the worst football, depending on who performs. Thanks for watching the DST show, recapping what happened on Saturday night on Wildcard weekend. Thanks for watching the DST show. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more content like this. I understand it ain't wrestling if you guys subscribe for that, but if you want to get more sports, more entertainment, of course, we'll cover over the Velma series from HBO Max very soon. I understand most of you guys, want to talk about animation on this channel and, more entertainment. We'll get into that furthermore, because I want to expand my horizon for my content for this year. Thanks for watching the DST show. Like, comment, subscribe.